Alright, BJ Ballsout Comedy Podcast. We're back, people. 2021. And today, we've got a special guest.
Very special guest.
Very special guest. Miss Nicky Barry. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. I got my flaps out for you.
Yes. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. What are you giggling about?
Flaps out. The flaps, it's a killer word.
See, child.
It needs to be more.
Child in the corner here.
I got my labia majora. I always thought that if I had twins, I'd call them Majora and Menora. I reckon that'd be great. Conversation starter. Nobody else is going to have that name on their lunchbox, are they?
No, it's like calling it's like calling your kid Apple or something. No one else is going to do that.
Oh, I think people would much rather nibble on a Menora than an apple. Anyway.
Oh, jeez.
How'd you get that name? Did your mum love you? I don't know.
Dad did. Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Yeah, so what's been going on?
Oh, I just moved house, so that's been a thing. Yeah, over the last week or so I've moved from somewhere that I've lived for 27 fucking years. Yes, a 4-bedroom house into like a 2-bedroom apartment that's about the size of a stamp. So that's been an experience. It's been a thing.
Did you find a thing like whenever I move house, you always find something that you lost? Did you find any treasures or?
Oh, I found like heaps of shit, really. You know, I don't know that we've found any treasures yet. We're still going on the clearing out of.
Oh no, it never has to be good, but you just find something. It's like, oh, that's where that fucking went. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's lots of stuff. There's lots of weird stuff in there. Also, when we moved, to put it into perspective, when we moved into the house, it was half the size it is now because we ended up extending it and stuff. And we only had one kid when we moved in, and 4 kids.
Oh,
so there's just so much crap in there, really. Yeah. You know, a couple of afterbirths buried under the floorboards, Johnny. You know, just to stamp it as ours. I casseroled the last one, but you know. Oh, sorry. Do people in Northcote listen to this podcast? Castlemaine, all those places, they know about casserole. And anyway, okay. Yeah, but there's no space to bury a placenta at my new apartment. You'll be pleased to know. Plus, I don't think I can make those anymore. So that's fucking hopeless.
Yeah, it's not really on what to do list, but yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Oh, you know, you gotta know what to do with the placenta when it arrives. You know, always be prepared.
Leave it with the doctors.
Should be a badge in Scouts.
And this is what I love about your comedy. You know,
hang on, this is a weird segue.
No. This is what I love. We were talking about this outside. Is that you know, people expect you to be this, you know, mother figure, like you were saying, and then you just go on this. And how many times I just sat there and gone, fuck.
Well, that was a very motherly thing. I was talking about placenta. You can't get more motherly than that.
Not at all, absolutely.
No, but you probably should talk to my kids about my mothering. You should have had them on the podcast.
Oh no, but he's not allowed to talk to kids.
Still. Actually, yes, I recognise your photo now from the website.
Yeah.
Let's make him.
Is that why he offered me sweets?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're having a barbecue sweets night.
Yeah, there's a difference between being a good host and a creepy host.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Okay.
So how's the comedy? Well, let's start from the beginning. When did you start comedy? And how'd you get into it?
Okay, so I'd always wanted to do. I was one of those always gonna, and never did. And I have a backstory. See, if I was ever going to be on like one of those talent shows, you know, you need a backstory if you're ever going to be on a talent show.
You need a sob story.
Yeah. So but I genuinely do have one. So my zany best friend, who I grew up with, she and I were the sorts of people who always used to jump up at parties and do stupid shit. And we decided that we were going to be like the next, Dawn French and Jennifer Saunders
Yeah,
type
yeah,
thing, you know, or the new Patsy and Eddie, like like that. Like we'd just be somewhere being amazing,
Yeah.
and some agent would see us be amazing and go, "Oh my God, they're amazing!" And the next minute we'd be headlining the Edinburgh Festival.
Yep.
We wouldn't have to do open mic, right? We wouldn't have to do any shit. We'd just be that good. We'd get a TV series and off we'd go, right? This was our plan, right? Meanwhile, we were parenting, so she had 7 kids, I only had 4. We went to Catholic school together. Anyway, when she was 41, she inconveniently got leukemia. And when she was 42, she inconveniently died of that leukemia. And we'd never done the comedy thing. So this is where it gets sad for a moment, people. But a couple of years later, I was at her husband's birthday party, and I was being silly once again, and a bunch of our friends said to me, "When are you going to go and bloody do something about your comedy?"
Yeah.
Right? And so I, because it was like 3 a.m. and I was a little bit drunk, Johnny, I said to them, "I'm going to enter raw comedy. Right? I'm going to do it." So I went home, and the next day I just went on the website and put my details in there, hit send, and then I got a thing from them saying, "Oh yes, you're, you know, in this heat in February," and I went, "Cool," and then I just chilled, and then, you know, a week beforehand when I got the reminder email was like, fuck, I don't know how to fucking write 5 minutes of comedy, I don't know how to do. So I went and did my first heat of raw comedy in 2011 at the East Brunswick Hotel, in the old band room that they've destroyed now, sticky carpet, 40 degrees. I was number 36 on a lineup of 40 people, and I had all of my supportive mates turn up, like about 20 of them. So they just stood down the back getting wankered, right, because they were having a fine time, and I was just pacing up and down the back of the band room, shitting my pants, going, why did I think I could do this, right, I cannot do this is terrible. Plus I also naively thought that everyone who does Raw has never done a gig. Right? And I'm here talking to all these dicks who go, "Oh, I've done 100 gigs, blah, blah, blah." It's like, fuck. But I was just like, I was watching people, I don't know if you guys do this, like, and just go, I'm not going to suck as bad as that person, right? Like, I might suck, but I won't suck as badly as that person. That was my only goal, right? Was not to suck as bad as the worst people. But then by some miracle, I got picked to get through to the next round. So then I was out till 3 a.m. with my friends, celebrating the fact that I was the funniest person who had ever lived, right? And then, you know, a couple of days later, get the email going, "Oh, so your next heat," and I was like, fuck, I have to do this again. Like, this is atrocious, right? So, but I actually somehow found myself in the state final of Raw,
Shit.
which was very cool.
Yeah.
And I thought I actually was doing okay at the final. Like, I was on early, I was on 3rd, I think, and I had a very nice response to my set. But then this guy named Kalafala got up and fucking destroyed the room. And I was like, you know, it's that thing as a comic, like, it's really exciting when you see somebody just absolutely kill. But on the other hand, I was like, fuck you, Khaled. Like, and, you know, he went on to be, like, fabulous. So that's great, but I did that, and then I did nothing for 2 years.
Okay.
Because I kind of thought like I'd proved something to myself, that I didn't completely suck at comedy. But yeah, 2 years later I kind of went, I might give this another whirl.
Yeah.
So I did Raw again, because I didn't know what else to do, and I only got through, I think 3 rounds or something, but it's that thing, I met one person at a gig who came up to me and was like, "You're a great woman, making space for other women in comedy, because that's what we fucking need." And she took me along to some rooms and introduced me to some folk, and I started gigging. So
nice.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you get the bug kind of straight away once you started gigging back into it after your little break, or?
No, well, I actually found, because I'd never gigged, you know, I'd done Raw, and then I did Raw again, so I'd never actually been out on the circuit. I didn't know people, I didn't know anything, and I think the first year that I did comedy, I'd done like 8 gigs between March and October. Oh, I know people, comics out there are just fucking laughing, right? And I thought that was like pretty good. But let's put this in context too. I was also a full-time working mother of 4 and had a lot of other stuff going on, so that shit's hard. but then I did a competition at the Docklands. You know that shithole, the Docklands.
Yeah.
The Spiegel tent there. They ran a festival there called the Blues Burlesque and Comedy Festival or something, and they had a comedy competition as part of that. So I entered that and I won, which was lovely.
Sure.
And my prize was I got $500. 500 comedy dollars. I think that's more money than I've earned in the rest of my comedy career. That was actual money. And I got a spot on. They had like a gala show on the closing night of the festival.
Yeah.
So my first like proper, I'm going to call this my first proper gig, was on a stage in the Spiegel tent with about 300 people with like Fiona O'Loughlin, Dave O'Neill, Jeff Green, a bunch of people. But here's a good story, blokes. So I'm absolutely over the moon to be doing that, right? Like I haven't even done 10 gigs yet, and I get to do that. Like that's very fucking cool. But also completely shitting myself, of course. And Chris Franklin had been booked to MC it, and he'd come the night before to watch the final, so he'd seen me, and he was, he'd come up to me and introduced himself and been lovely, which was very nice. But so we turned up for the night for the gala show, and Chris Franklin always looks like Chris Franklin, right? But he comes in and he's like, "Oh, jeez." He goes, "You know how you saw me here last night, Nicky?" I said, "Yep." He goes, "Well then, I went to the strippers." I'm like, "Oh yeah, of course you did." And he goes, "And then I got a phone call from my son to say that I had a new grandkid. So I've just been out on the beers and now I'm here." So he'd been on like a at least 24-hour
A one-person
Chris
bender.
Franklin bender, right?
Jesus.
And had come to MC the show, right? And I was on second. So he's gone out. He's started the show. The audience is loving it. And Dan Willis was on first, and he was great. He'd been hosting the competition round, so I'd got to know him a little bit. He was very lovely, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'm going to make them really laugh, and you'll go out there and you'll be great, you'll have a good time." It's like, great. And then I got to go out and I got to do my thing, and it was fabulous, and I had a really good time, and the audience was lovely. And then as I'm walking off the stage, Chris Franklin comes out and he goes, "Oh my God, I told you she was great. Please give it up again for Nikki Clark." And I was like, "Fuck you, Chris Franklin."
No.
Fuck you.
No.
My big moment. Thanks.
Well,
That was pretty cool.
we had Chris on. Mid-year. If you're listening, you owe Nicky an apology if you haven't already.
Oh, it's cool. It was pretty funny. It's a good story.
Yeah. Oh, shattered. So, okay, so you know nothing about comedy coming into it, and you're just a naturally funny person, which anyone who's met you can tell. Did you have any interest in comedy, or was it just like?
No, I grew up in a household. My dad, in particular, was a real fan of British comedy. So we grew up listening to and watching Python, in particular. My dad was also into the Goons, who most people who are listening to your podcast probably are way too young to know who the Goons are.
We got a bit of everyone.
But we've got so the Goons, a lot of that really sort of classic and absurdist British comedy. He was also really into Barry Humphries, who we can't be into anymore because he's a homophobic cunt. But so I got to go and see live comedy and listen to and watch lots of recorded comedy and things, and I always loved it. And I'm also so old. Oh, this is terrible. I have been to, so it was the Spoleto Festival originally. Every Melbourne International Comedy Festival I've been to since the thing started, apart from 2, just because of the inconvenience of childbirth. Those children owe me shows. But anyway, so no, I was always a very avid fan of comedy. Yeah, always.
So who did you look up to? Like, if you had to spitball some names that were just like, yeah, I love that. I need to do that. Not copying, but
I don't know that there was anyone who necessarily influenced me like that, but I think like I love the absurdity of Python. I'm not an absurdist myself, really, but you know, their stuff for me was always really interesting. Actually, also, we used to listen to, on ABC Radio, on a Sunday, people, on the wireless, there used to be this thing called the wireless, families used to sit around and listen to, and try not to kill each other. But it was the Naked Vicar Show, which was made by, have you ever seen Kingswood Country, Ted Bullpit? The guy who was Ted Bullpit.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah. Him, Nolene Brown, and a couple of others, brilliant Australian sketch comedy show that actually took on a lot of interesting social issues, as did Kingswood Country actually. But so a lot of stuff like that. In terms of stand-up, one of the I guess one of the first stand-ups I saw that I really went, fuck yeah, actually was Judith Lucy, who's Judith's a few years younger than me, a couple of years younger than me, but I can remember her starting, like seeing her at places like La Joke.
Yeah.
And if you think that, like, well, it is. Comedy can still be quite a misogynist territory, but back in those days, it was open slather. I've seen her have, like, stubbies chucked at her. I've heard people scream out all sorts of, like, really, you know, offensive, you know, calling her out, you know. And one of the things she used to do, which I fucking love her for to this day, so, you know, women aren't meant to have hair under their armpits, listeners. Like, it's there, but it's not meant to be there, right? And you're certainly not meant to expose it or talk about it or anything. And she would, you know, turn up to a show wearing like a singlet top or a strappy dress or something and stick her arm up. She was on the ABC once. Tony Martin and Mick Malloy, when they were still friends, had a show on, and she, you know, she was like one of their mates, and I remember once she sat on the couch as a guest on their show and put her arm up on the back of the couch, and the ABC was just inundated with complaints about, you know, how dare this, you know, woman, how dare she, like, expose her armpit hair on television, like, that's disgraceful. But I've always thought that, I've always loved her stuff, you know, no holds barred. I think she's great, and I've never, you know, I've seen her a million times, and she's always been fabulous. So yeah. But then I guess like you guys do, I love lots of Melbourne comics that no one ever knows about. You know, some of the best comics you ever see never become a name. That's just how it is. Yeah.
I wonder why that is. Is it just because they're not marketable, or like they're look-wise, or, you know, we can't put them on that show, or material, or... Because, I mean, I don't find much, you know, talk show shit on TV funny, which is where all those acts come from. Like, Peter Halley is massive, apparently, but I don't get it. But, like, is because the people can't do that on TV kind of thing? That's why they don't become
I think that the Australian comedy industry is overall very small and very narrow. So if you look at who makes it to getting signed, because really to get onto telly or radio, you've got to be signed by someone, right? That's how it works. So, and the risk appetite is very small. So, you know, someone like a big management company is only going to sign people that they believe they can make money out of, because that's what they're doing it for. They're not doing it for you, they're doing it for them. So it's that think about, you know, yes, what does someone look like? What do they sound like? What TV show could we possibly get them to guest in? And a whole bunch of other things. And I guess the other thing is actually artistically, if you choose to go down that path, and I don't blame people because it's that thing, you could make a solid living out of something that you enjoy doing and all the rest of it and have lots of opportunities come your way, and that's great. But you are actually signing a contract that diminishes your artistic power in terms of what you can and can't do. And there are some comics who've managed to forge a career without management because they would prefer to have the artistic freedom, you know, to gig where they want, when they want, with who they want, and do whatever the fuck else they want, rather than actually be signed. But I don't criticise people either way for it. Good luck to them.
Yeah, you've got to live.
But it is, it is that thing about... And if you actually look at who those big management companies sign, it's not that any of those people aren't talented. Obviously they are very talented people, but it's also that thing about they're you know, reasonably generic, I think is the word that I'd use, in terms of the scope of their comedy. You know,
Could that be because they share writing teams or something like that? like the project, for example. That's just a team of writers, isn't it?
Well, the project is, there's a bunch of comedians that write for the project.
Yeah.
Good on them. But no, I just think it's got more to do with. I think Australia is. We'd like to delude ourselves that we're, very wide and open to things. But, if you look at commercial television and commercial entertainment in Australia, we're so beige. And once again, in saying that, I'm not saying that the comedians themselves are beige. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I think, we can all think about amazing comics that we know that are just too kind of, edgy, different, whatever, don't fit the mould, they're never going to get signed. They're brilliant comics, they're not going to get signed.
It's so narrow, that's what I was trying to say. It's narrow, you can't go outside of that boundary. If you do, you know what happens, they just go after you completely.
Yeah, it's like
then your
firing
career's
squad on
gone,
social media,
and then you've got to forge another career on the other side, and then you've lost that monetary value of yourself. So, and which, like you say, it's very vanilla in that sense.
It's like pop music.
Yeah, it's just that.
Yes, it's like the Veronicas doing stand-up. Imagine that. No, don't imagine that. Although maybe they should give it a go. They might be better. Oh, all right. Hi to the Veronicas if you're listening.
I would love to hear a set of them talking about how much they're sick of their fucking song. That whatever the fuck that one is.
It's that one.
That one.
It's that one that
song
came
they
out
did
before
that
the other one. Yeah.
I know the guy who played violin on that track. Absolute flog. But yeah, little fun fact for you.
Well, so he trained in classical music for all those years, so we could play that from the. But it's probably the most lucrative thing he's ever done. Really?
Yeah, I've heard his new band. Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
Wow.
One track of the Veronicas, much better than anything he's done. He's not going to listen to this.
Great.
Now, is there we're both massive fans of yours, hence why we asked John, but is there any...
You can ask Jordy.
And that is just side, that is something I have noticed about you. Like whenever I've had mates come along to gigs and you're on, or I think you were emceeing that George's competition one night, and I was on, and my grandparents fucking loved you, and I've had a couple of my best mates, they're like, who the fuck was that? I was like, yeah, it's Nicky Barry. So yeah, you're one of the people who have, got like a little bookmark on you when my mates like, if you're on a gig with Q, let me know. And I was like, yeah, done.
Is there a topic you wouldn't touch?
Yeah, is there a topic, a style? Is there something
that you wouldn't go near?
That you wouldn't go near?
I'm not going to touch that. It's just.
Well, I think in terms of kind of risque, edgy material, it's all about intent. So this is the interesting thing. I think that, like, and I know what you're referring to, and mainly, stuff around stuff like, rape, sexual assault, that sort of thing. I have seen some people do material on that is absolutely brilliant and really says something very powerful about that particular topic. But, and I would say this very specifically to a lot of the young men that might be listening to this, there is a purpose to it, and inevitably what the person is talking about comes from their lived experience of something. So someone like Adrienne Truscott is a classic example of that. She experienced a horrific assault, and her I'm taking my power back was to write a show about it and to really kind of, put out there into the space, a different, get people talking about this from a different perspective. But aside from that, I think it comes back to a couple of things. It's very selfish as a comic. If you think about why people are coming to see you, it's to be entertained and have a good time. And sometimes within that entertain and have a good time, there is the stuff, have some ideas, challenge, talk about something provocative or whatever. But overall, I want to go and see comedy and come away from that feeling good, And so if I'm going to sit there as an audience member and listen to someone who's either going to use the stage as their therapy space, and we see that all the time about all different sorts of things, and I probably do it too, but fuck you, I'm special. Or, if they're just going to do stuff for the sake of being fucking provocative without any point to it, it's like, be better. That's my perspective on it. So I don't think, and I, as an audience member too, will vote with my feet. So if someone, and there have been times when I've been lineups with people who've done stuff that's absolutely atrocious, and I will stand up and I'll step outside.
Yeah.
You know, because it's
Agreed.
like, that's my choice, and I will exercise it. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think that's a very important word, intent.
Yeah.
I think, like, I think a lot of, and yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of young male comics. I'm 31 now. I can
Yeah, you can call them like that's
fucking
fine.
kids these days. No,
you're still a kid.
well, compared to you maybe, but anyway. So yeah, that word intent's very important. I think because and to put it in context in my mind, is just like one thing I got told after like my second gig was like, okay, yeah, you say fuck too much in normal conversation, but when you're on stage, because I said it because I was nervous, like I'd forget a word, second, third gig, whatever, but using it like a space bar or dropping the C-bomb or like, you know, saying cunt 3 times in a sentence, like it loses the meaning and the...
Is that what I'm doing wrong now?
Not you fuckhead, not everything's about you, big boy. No, it's... No, I just mean like... Words lose their meanings if you use them too much, sort of thing. But if you are doing a rape joke, and rape's disgusting, full stop. But again, if you're showing a different light of it, it's like, yeah, no, that is fucked up. But here's how you can think about it, sort of thing. Like just saying a rape joke for the sake of saying a rape joke.
Yeah, but then it comes back to that shock value. Some of these young kids want to shock you, and they haven't lived through it. They know nothing about this.
Yeah. But it's okay to shock, but if you've got a message or if you've got the intent behind it of like, no, I'm not making that subject, I'm not saying that that's funny, but I know what I'm trying to say, but I can't.
Yeah, but I think the other thing that people need to think about, you know, like if you think more broadly about it, in your audience, inevitably will be somebody, sadly, at least one person who's had that happen to them. In fact, statistically, I had this conversation with my girlfriend, so I said, I do not know a woman who has not been sexually assaulted. You know, it's just to the degree. And for some women, that experience happens to them, sadly, you know, more than once in their lifetime. And so it's also that thing, it's like, you can be putting out, you know, your mind-blowingly wonderful, you know, spin on this, but that's not necessarily what I'm hearing when I'm sitting there. And so I kind of think like, unless you've really developed that material intensely and like very well and with a very clear purpose, just there's plenty of other shit going on in the world. Like, you know, come on, take on some social issues. If you want to champion something, you know, champion something. You don't need to do that.
It's like domestic abuse jokes as well.
Well,
like,
yeah, same.
You can spin it, but I saw firsthand the other night, I'm not going to name names, but like I saw firsthand.
Come on.
No, because I think he listens. No, he listens.
Okay.
But you saw someone do it and fail,
Yeah, so got to this gig early, and XYZ person was like, oh, I've got this joke, don't know if I can do it, but you know, I really want to try it. And I was like, well, you don't know until you fucking do it, do you? Like, you told me the subject, but not the joke. And you don't know what the fuck it is. Like, I thought there'd be something clever about it, but you get up to the crowd's loving it. The crowd's having a great night, and I'm doing sound, so I'm seeing like what's happening on the stage versus like what's going on out here, and you know, who whipped the phone out for this point, and you know, who started chatting, who went and got a drink, and all that sort of shit. And just this joke came out, and he'd already been doing too long anyway for his spot, but this joke fucking came out, and just it was like a dimmer switch. You just saw the
people recoil.
It wasn't developed. There was this mum and her 2 kids who, like, she was in her 50s, I reckon, and they were about my age, I think, and they were fucking loving the night. And you just saw them just switch off completely. It's a power. Words are fucking powerful, and you got to read the room. But like, there's some subjects you have to tread fucking carefully.
Yeah, of course.
Whether it's right or wrong, but just be aware.
You were part of a comedy troupe, the CWA, was it?
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
Do you want to tell us what it stands for?
Yeah, so CWA. Well, we set up a group. There used to be a show, a night at Station 59 that was called Yes All Women.
Yep.
That a lot of us that are came in and around my era and the year or two surrounding me kind of participated in, which was great. It was a night for women to get up and do open mic comedy and stuff. And it was a wonderful kind of, fun thing, supportive group, and we had great times together. And then, that venue closed, and we decided that we wanted to sort of try and keep that ethos kind of going. And a couple of mates of mine set up CWA, which we officially call the Comedy Women's Association, but unofficially call Cunts with Attitude, which is very much describes the attitude of the group. And we ordinarily, CWA would run a gig once a month, and we would have a female identifying lineup on, and then we would have a TJB, a token joking bloke, because we try to be supportive of men in the industry. They don't get enough opportunities. No. We're aware of that, and so we just try and redress the balance, and also answer the question: can men be funny? Because overwhelmingly, the statistics aren't always great, are they? But we do that.
Quantity over quality.
Oh yes, and so it's been it's been a beautiful thing. I'm certainly not at the centre of it. So my mate Kaylee Christian and Cherie Smith are the people who really kind of set that up. And Mike Barnes was also very helpful. Mike, who used to run Mad Dog, and in Footscray. Yeah. So he kind of helped a lot to get it going as well. We lost our most recent gig home, and then COVID happened.
Yep.
So we're just in the process, I guess, of thinking about probably on the other side of Comedy Festival, like what we'll do next with that group. But it's been really great. It's it's a fun time, and there have been I think there is that thing for a whole range of reasons that a lot of women who want to get into comedy sometimes find it a bit more intimidating maybe than some of the boys, just because they see it very much, especially at an open mic level, that there's just so many blokes, and maybe they don't feel entirely comfortable in that environment, or don't feel that they're going to get the same level of support or whatever. So we sort of set the group up often, with the idea that we try and foster new people and encourage them to keep going. And but it is a thing at the same time. I'm not a fan of if you want to be part of an industry, you need to be part of an industry. And so I think that you have to be prepared to step out there and put yourself out. When you've got the confidence to do it, you just need to dive in and be part of it. And we all need to work to improve the industry for everyone. It's not just about a gender or a group that identify in a certain way. It's like there's improvements to be made, and we all got to do it together. But it's a real fun thing to be part of, and we have some fabulous times. Actually, most of the best times we have are actually off stage, I think, John. Yeah. This is the thing about comedy. There's what happens at the gigs, but it's everything else that happens that's... that's where the real stories are.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you tour with a band or something. Like, sure, the show went alright, but we got fucked up and I rode a pony. True story. But no, totally get it. It's that, it's just the social side of things. But do you reckon people need to focus more on the audience? Because I'm a firm believer in you're lucky to have a crowd no matter what. I don't give a fuck who you are. Whatever night it is, whatever day it is, whatever venue it is, whoever's on the lineup, because you don't have to leave the house to be entertained now.
No, you don't. But then you're being entertained by yourself. and so here's the perfect segue into comedy is very much like sex. No, because it is. It's a thing. It's a conspiracy, right? But comedy is a conspiracy to have fun with your audience, right? So if they don't dig you, you can spend however much time you want writing stuff, practicing, recording it to make sure it's perfect, blah, 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 blah. Right? You have got 30 seconds when you step up there. For the moment they hear your name, they are making decisions about you, right? Because, they'll say, okay, Nicky Barry, my name's interesting because, some people see my name on a poster and assume that I'm a man. So that's always
Really?
interesting. Yeah. Well, Nicky, Nicky Barry. If you Google Nicky Barry, the one that comes up the most was an Irish soccer player who was very, very famous and has fan groups all over the world.
He is the soccer guy. I know nothing
Yeah,
about him.
I don't know how long ago he played, but I'm just saying. So I had the experience a couple of years ago. I was at a gig out in a big suburban pub, one of those giant, kind of places, and they had posters up on the bar with, comedy tonight and the names of the acts and stuff. And Goxie was headlining, so he had all these fans in and stuff. It was going to be a great night. I was standing at the bar. And a man of a certain age in high-vis, how unusual, came over and started chatting to me while I was waiting to get my drink and said to me, "Oh, I've come for the comedy." And I was like, "Yeah, me too." And he goes, "Yeah, and he was going on about Goxie. Oh, he's great. He is great." And he's like, "Oh, yeah." And he goes, and he's running his finger down the list, and he goes, "Oh, don't know about any of these others." He goes, "Oh, I've heard about Nicky Barry, but I've never seen him. I don't know what he's like." And I said, "Oh, righto." And conveniently, that guy was sitting about 3 rows from the front, so he found out.
Did you win him over?
Oh, yeah, in a fashion, Johnny. Won him over, destroyed. I'm not sure which way that would go. But there's that thing, you really do. You have a very small window of time. And so it's that thing about, I believe that comedy should always be somewhat playful, and I think I am quite playful when I'm doing my stuff. But it's that thing about you need to invite the audience in right at the beginning, and you need to somehow give them some connection point to you so that they're going to listen to you for your 5, your 10, your whatever, because otherwise why should they?
Yeah. No, agreed.
So, yeah, that's what I think. And, be... be a great comedian is like being a great lover. You've got to cater to the other person's needs a bit. Just tweak their nipples when you go out there. It's amazing. What a difference that makes.
I'm going to try that. I'll find
just walk out and just it's a bit hard with social distancing at the moment. Unless they've got absolute anyway. But take tongs, give it a go. Just.
So how many comedy festivals have you done?
Me myself as a participant, not many. Last year was obviously a write-off. I was meant to do a show with my mate Lucy Best last year, which I will be doing this.
Oh, that would have been good.
Which I will be doing this year for 3 nights only. Motherfucked at Storyville. Get on it, people. But I've only done maybe 3. Yeah, and I've never not like an hour solo. I've done group shows. I did a fabulous play one year with a bunch of comics that a guy called Duff wrote for us. That was a kind of a send off of Agatha Christie murder mysteries. That was just over the top and ridiculous. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I'm going to make my solo debut when I'm 70. Fuck it. I'm just
out of the coffin onto
waiting.
the stage.
Coffin.
It's good to have goals.
Yeah.
It's a bit dark, but
I just need a venue with no fucking stairs. Could we just have more comedy venues with no stairs?
I'll try and get some.
I
one
need
of those
that.
lifts up at Devil Glory,
Those old people
or a dumbwaiter.
sit down and just go right up,
Yeah, or
through
I
the
just,
audience.
or a fit young man to just carry me. I don't mind. Actually, get that.
Yeah,
I'll pick him out.
Alright, I'll organise your first debut solo show with Manpower, and you can have them carry up the stairs.
Oh, not those. Nah.
That'd be old.
Don't want those steroid abusing. Nah, they don't have weenie. No.
Actually, no, you'd probably slip off their back with all the fucking oil they put on and stuff.
Oh, what about the oil on my back? I think you're underestimating how much I oil, Jordy. Seriously.
To be honest, never thought of it. That's out of
No,
respect.
don't. Try not to. It's horrible.
I'm a respectful young gentleman, I try to be. Now, I have to ask, your mother.
Yes.
Don't know her personally.
Can I just curl up on the couch now and cry? No.
Now, I don't know her personally,
No,
but I
few
do.
people do.
I do see the aftermath of your interactions with her on Facebook.
Yes.
And I'm very curious. What's her thing with Tim Minchin?
Oh, okay. So we should fill the listeners in a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So I put up a post maybe a week or 2 ago about the fact that Gloria had seen Tim Minchin. He'd released a new single or something, and Gloria loves a bit of daytime TV, so she'd seen him on one of those morning programs probably, and made the commentary to me, Nicole, he's just all eyeliner and pretentiously unnecessary enunciation. And I had to agree with her. I seldom agree with Gloria. Usually I'm just there rolling my eyes going, oh, here she fucking goes again. I was like, yes, he is. Based on what was presented, like I Googled the single and was like, oh God, and then I posted about it on Facebook, listeners, and
yeah.
Although, Wayne House bought in, he agreed with me. I was like, yeah, I know.
Wayne House. Yeah.
Yeah, so
where do you stand on musical comedy?
Oh.
No, safe space. We can talk about it.
Look, I think anybody who gets up on stage and plays an instrument and tries to otherwise engage the audience at the same time, I salute you. Like that's, like my guitar skills are Guitar Hero. I'm not bad at, but the rest of it, I'm kind of like at the green sleeves, ding 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 ding, ding that kind of level, right? I don't mind an occasional parody song, but overall they're a bit of a cop-out. Like any of us could sit here now and just make one, right, to the tune of an existing song. So I think that's a little bit like, it's a little bit of a cop-out to be too reliant on that. And I do think that musical comedy for an hour is a very hard thing to execute
and sit through.
There are occasionally, so there's a guy called Grant Brisset who is back in Australia now. I think he was over in the UK for a couple of years. He's a very talented musical comedian, but it's because he's actually incredibly funny and also an incredibly good musician, and you don't get that very often. So, but overall, it's not something I would choose to pay money to go and watch, or
Or book for me.
It's not a medium. It's another. It's just another.
No, it puts a spanner in the works if you book in a room, because you've got to allow extra time for them to pack up and pack down.
Yeah, true.
They've always got to be on, like certain spots in the bracket. Yeah, logistically, which is, I mean, some of them are very good at just. But overall, Blake Everett, he's another guy who's actually. But it's that thing about Blake's a brilliant stand-up. He just has the added bit of also being able to do the musical stuff, so he's not dependent.
Yeah. How do you feel about characters?
Oh, fuck. Fucking kill me. Look, I once again, I think that overall, I know I could not do character comedy because I can't sustain character. Just read my reviews. But although I've managed to sustain this one for 55 years, I guess that's something. But I think that it's a hard ask. I think it can work as a solo show if you've got somebody that has the capacity to do that, and occasionally someone comes along who really does have the capacity to do that. Neil Portenza is a classic example of that. Absolutely brilliant as a character in every show I've ever seen him do has been incredible. But on a lineup, that's a hard thing. Like if you're running a gig and you've got to slot someone in that's doing character comedy, I think that can often be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
And I think that they struggle in the short format often because you've got to establish who the character is, give them a story, get the comedy in, and get out, and that's a lot to try and do in 5 minutes. So I think that's a bit tricky as well. Like I said, I appreciate the skill involved.
Yeah.
I'm not poo-pooing it, but it's not necessarily my choice to go and watch either, with a few exceptions.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I think it, like, from a room runner's perspective, it kind of like throws an absolute spanner in the works. It's like you got these people vibing on like the first few acts of stand-up comedy, and you might have a theme or whatever, and someone comes up and does a character, and the momentum's lost. Like I've never seen a good one, like a really, really fucking good one.
Yeah, well, I think it's also that thing about it takes time to develop them. And even if you think about it, so Anne Edmonds is a classic example, right? Like Anne Edmonds, Edo is a brilliant comic, an absolutely brilliant stand-up comic. She's also very good at characters, and she's created some fabulous ones. So she's Helen Badeau, who did the thing with Kraken. the two women that did the cooking show, the two Kates,
Yeah.
that was on a couple of years ago.
No,
You know, and Helen Badeau has grown beyond Kraken now. She did a wonderful series for the ABC where she played most of the characters in her short series and all that sort of things. But I think it's that thing about, you know, she's clever enough to know her stand-up is her stand-up, and then her character stuff is, you know, her stuff that kind of sits separately to that. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes people also like to see that character. Like if you've gone to a show, and I've specifically seen her say on the ABC, you know, I'm like, oh, she might do it, and so I'm going there to see her do that character because I've sort of invested in that character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like anything. I mean, it's a great skill to have, I think. I mean, and it's great to bring them out from time to time, even on the stage. It's just, you know, it's how good you do that character. That's the...
Yeah, no, but I do, as someone who used to run a room, I agree with you, Johnny, in terms of, you know, you'd be like, you're going to do what? Or, you know, I thought I'd do this. You know, you've booked someone based on their stand-up and then they turn up and go, oh, I thought I'd be Auntie Beryl today. And you're like, fuck no, not on my time.
I have to provide, 5 minutes before the show? Like, I had someone ask me to do Death or Glory when I first started, like when I first started running it, and like, oh, so I've got this set, and you know, I saw them on social media and thought, oh, okay, yeah, they've got a few followers, and I was trying to get anyone and everyone I put in.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so do you reckon it'd be alright if I had a kiddie pool? Not a kiddie pool, one of those, you know, those fucking shell things.
Oh, the clam, yeah.
The clams, yeah. I just don't know what you call them, but yeah, the clams. Okay, so I need a clam, and in my head I immediately went back to when I worked at the strippers, because that's what they would, you know, bathe in and shit. And what the fuck's going on here? I need red food dye, water, and
no, it's just water. No.
Something else, yeah, because you know how the stage is set up. You got the fallback systems and all that sort of shit. It's like, yeah, I don't think the venue's going to allow that. And he didn't even tell me what the act was. He told me this wasn't him providing it.
Oh, this was you providing it for him. Oh, suck my flat.
No.
Like, seriously.
Yeah, no. If you know, you said, I'll buy you a fucking drink or something. But that's as far as that goes. Like, I'm not providing. If you need the lights turned off before you jump on stage, sure, I'll do that, or intro music or something like that. Sure, no worries, but I'm not going out and buying a fucking clam. Wouldn't even fit in my car. But yeah, and plus, water on stage, fuck that. But
yeah, no.
Yeah, but it's his character. Why the fuck would he be asking you to spend money on him?
It's probably
because
a title.
he's an artist.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, he probably says an artiste. Yeah. Flogologist. But
so is the comedy festival happening this year? Or what's
what is going on?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. You know, thank you, COVID. Stay away. No, so it's happening, but I guess they haven't produced, like, they're not producing a printed guide, so the website's up, so people can go to the website and see who's on and what they're doing. But I guess it's going to be very different because, you know, there's not going to be touring internationals.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens even with comedians who are based interstate, about, you know, where people come. But, like, for example, Perth Fringe is on now, and there are, you know, a few people from Victoria who've gone to Perth to do Fringe there. Then there'll be Adelaide, then there'll be Melbourne. But yeah, it's interesting because I guess for local comedians, it's that thing about comedy festivals always a gamble anyway. But it's like, okay, do I take the punt because there's not going to be as much competition in terms of, you know, people can't go and see Stephen K. Amos or whoever, so they might actually come and see some local performers. Or do I think that people are just going to go, oh, it's not going to be as good this year, so as an audience member, I'm not supporting it. You know, it is a bit of an each-way thing, I guess. It always is, but I think even more so. But then on the other hand, I know that a lot of venues have approached it differently in terms of they're doing maybe ticket splits with their comics instead of charging a set room hire fee, which means that if you happen to only get 15 people to your show, you're still not losing money. Like, you mightn't be making anything much, but and they chopped the Red Joe fee back a bit, but it's still like $350. So it's a lot of, you know, $350 for comedians is a lot of money. Like, you know, for your average schmo.
Yeah.
But yes, it is happening. So, get on board, punters, come along, see folk. And I'm hoping there might be just a lot more spontaneity around it again, in terms of, I think that people might just, it'll be interesting to see if the Bear Pit's operating at the Exford, my favourite gig during Comedy Festival.
I have heard about that.
Oh, you got to do it. You got to do it before you die.
I'll do it.
It's good. Or do it and die, or whatever. It's the best. But hopefully people might get a bit more creative about, putting on just spontaneous line-up shows and stuff as well.
I think you're right. Like, I mean, if we're not having the internationals and even the interstaters, or we might have a few, it's actually going to be pretty good for the comedians here. But it's just going to open up.
If people come.
I think they will. I mean, it's just. I mean, if COVID stays away, like you're saying, and I think it would be actually pretty awesome because you actually see our acts. You know what I mean? Like, you actually invest more time instead of going, oh, yeah, I want to see him because I've seen him on TV. You know what I mean? So.
Well, it's even that thing in terms of cost, because if you think about it now, a lot of the people, like the big names, if they're at the Arts Centre or something like that, to go and see them is 50, 60, sometimes even more. Whereas, you can go and see like 3 or 4, shows, and it's that thing, we actually do have a lot of people that put on really great shows. It's just that thing, I always, I'm sure you guys have it too, friends always ask me every year, like, who should I go and see? And, I always say to people, look, if you've got someone who's your absolute favourite, who's touring or something, and you want to go and see them, of course, but then it's like, choose 2 or 3 people that you've never seen before, and I'll give them a bit of a list based on, what I know they like and what I think they would enjoy. We've got so many really good comics that put on really good stuff. It's like you can pay $15-20. You can see 3 shows that night and have an awesome time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or go to all open. Just because comedy festivals on doesn't mean comedy's not around. I think the people who aren't in the... I used to think this before I got into comedy. Oh, that's when comedy happens. I had no fucking idea that there were weekly rooms and shit until I looked it up and had an interest in comedy.
Well, comedy doesn't always happen there, but anyway. Ask me later, punters, for a list. I'll give you a list.
Yeah, people just go out. You'll see. You never know who you're going to see.
What's your worst? And you probably haven't, because worst ever bomb?
I think this might lead into my next question: is how do you deal with heckler? I know how you deal with.
Oh, we all know.
Well, I have to say, I've never had the 5 minute of silence complete bomb. I've had times when I haven't done anywhere near as well as I wanted to. I think that's probably the difference. And I'm not saying that to be conceited, because we've all watched people tank, and I feel really bad for people that tank unless they're a shit cunt. Then I'm happy, right? Like, no, there's just a couple of people that I barrack for to be bad, But overall, I'm very supportive of everyone else in the industry. And
I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a list. But like,
it's not you, Benny. No,
yeah, no. I should produce my list. I'm going to publish it. But
it'd be more of a manifesto, wouldn't it?
I think that. More so than that, I think, like, when people ask me about, like, your worst gigs, like, my worst gigs aren't necessarily about my performance at them, they're about the actual gig themselves.
Yeah.
When you arrive at a gig and you're just like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, why am I even here? Especially for me, like, I'm 55 years old now. It's like, for fuck's sake, you have a job that pays you a living. What the fuck are you doing on a Friday night, driving yourself to this fucking shithole to be surrounded by these, bottom feeder, like, just the whole thing. It's like, why? You know before the thing starts that it's going to be bad, and you do it anyway. And my worst one of those, I think, now there's been a few, I get around, I went to a place called Coleraine, I think, which is out near Hamilton. And let's put this in context, the night before I'd done a gig in Torquay. So I'd driven from Torquay across the state of Victoria, this place called Coleraine, and it was a Saturday evening gig at the local football club. Classy. I was the token chick on the lineup, of course, and there was a bunch of bloke comics from Melbourne driving in a carload as well, and there's no motel in the town, so the guy who was organising the gig for us had rented us somebody's place for the night to crash in if we wanted to, but I'd already made the decision I was not sleeping in a grotty share house with the comedy boys from Melbourne. I was like, no, I'll drive myself home. But I arrived in this country town at about 5, the gig was until about 7, and I did the clever thing, tip comics, if you're going to do a country gig, you go to the pub, because that's where you find out all the shit about the place and the local characters and stuff, and then you use that shit on the stage and they fucking lose their minds, right? But I walked into this pub and it was like, in the old Western movies where the saloon door opens and the pianist stops, and because I'm a woman walking into the pub on a Saturday afternoon into that sacred space where the men are, right? And so I walk in and they're just all staring at me, and I walk over to the bar and the barman says, "Oh, hello, how are you?" He says, "What can I get you?" And wait for it, I say, "Oh, I'll have a Shiraz, please." And his response is, "You're not from round here." Like, ding. And then he goes and gets my Shiraz, hands it to me and says, "Are you from Hamilton?" And I said, "No, I'm from Melbourne." And he looked at me and he said, "What? Melbourne?" And I was like, "Yes." And then he said to me the thing that I was thinking myself. He said, "Why are you here?" Right? I was asking myself at this point, why am I here? And by this stage, all the slack-jawed yokels have kind of gathered closer to eavesdrop, to suss out this strange person, right? And I said to him, "I'm here for the comedy night at the footy club." And he said, "Oh yeah, we've all heard about that. I think a couple of people are going, this and that." And he said to me, "Gee, you're a keen fan. Who have you come to see?" Oh. And I said to him, "I'm one of the acts." And he looked at me and he said, "But you're a girl." And I was like, oh fucking hell. And it just degenerated from there. Although it was very funny because the acts that had been booked for the gig, the bloke gigs, included Blake Freeman, who at the time had super long hair that he used to wear in a bun on top of his head, and Ferdy Billamoria, who is a very tall,
Was he Lebanese? I actually don't know.
No, but he's got that really dark sort of olive complexion and everything, and yes, and obviously a very elaborate name.
A very out of town looking
character. And they were not coping. There was a brown boy. Well, Taco was on as well. It's just who are all these people?
Taco, but
a boy with a bun. They actually said to me at the bar at the footy club, "Is that a boy with a bun?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And Joseph Green was emceeing, and Joseph does this brilliant bit of comedy that's about homophobia and AFL.
The footy bit, yeah.
And he decided
so good.
He decided to open the show with that.
What, the very first day?
He was the MC.
Oh, sorry.
But he opened with that, and you could just feel there was no love in the room for him by the time that was finished.
No.
The only good thing about that gig was that we got scones.
Did you get jam and cream at least?
Yeah.
Cool.
We got the women folk of the footy club whipped up a batch of scones during the break.
Scones,
we got schnitzel before the show.
Oh shit!
Yeah, they cooked us schnitzels.
Imagine if someone just gave you a scone without anything else with it. That'd be a nice backhanded.
Yeah.
Thanks
you
for
don't
coming.
deserve. Oh well.
No, you don't deserve our jam and cream from this country.
Yeah, no.
Not this country. This countryside.
But I reckon that's one of the worst gigs I've ever done in terms of the gig itself. It was challenging.
Yeah.
But I didn't bomb.
That's the main thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Is this
important.
Werribee?
I haven't done Werribee.
When you do, I'm coming. I don't care if I'm on the
I
line
don't
off
think
or not.
I am.
I just want to see how you're doing it.
But but I am very inspired by the work of John Doerr in that space.
I should know Werribee.
No, that's why I want to come watch.
I'd love her.
It's precisely why I want to come watch.
Oh.
I've seen you go off at a crowd. I love it. I like your material, but I also really like the interaction. No, it's very good. So we were talking about hecklers outside before we come in, and I'm not going to use your words, but you're explaining there's two schools of thought of it. Like which direction you can
I
go.
think there are. Well, I think there's the one that you can either, when people are heckling, it's also that thing about like what's the purpose of because for the heckler, there's the thing about like sometimes they're just being a drunk, dickhead, and you can close them down pretty quickly, or management will very kindly come and fish them out of their seat for you and take them away. So there's that. But aside from that, I guess it's the thing about, you can choose to whether you engage or not as a comic. And I don't have any strong feeling either way. I think the thing is that if you are going to take on a heckler, you have to be prepared to really take them on. Don't do it half-assed. So
fight to the death.
it's that thing. But it's also that thing about, be the better person. Like you're up on that stage supposedly because you're witty and funny and clever, right? Yeah. So if you're just going to stand there and call them a cunt, don't bother with that either, because that's actually not clever.
No.
Like anybody can do that. It's like either use the powers that you have, in terms of your humour and your wit and stuff, and be playful and clever, and hopefully win them over and silence them, or if you must, embarrass them, if that's the way that it goes. But otherwise, just be clever. My favourite heckler ever, I think, I did a gig at the Ocean Grove Cricket Club. This is how illustrious my career is, listeners. You've been listening to the places I've been gigging. But once again, it was one of those where the minute we turned up, myself and there was another woman on the lineup with me, looked at each other and just went, oh, here we go. This fella was actually like, he was the president, I think, or one of the senior officials of the club, and he was already like tanked when we arrived. And he was one of those men, when the polo got the polo top on, the obligatory club polo, but the bottom of the polo nowhere near covers the extent of the beer gut, right? So there's the bit that's there, and he's thinking he's all that and a bag of chips, and he's talking to us before the show. And then, he's down the back, and I was second last. And so by the time he's getting louder and louder throughout the show, and people are trying to shush him up, but at the same time, he's important, he's the man here. No, so people are kind of being tolerant, But it gets to me, and by the time it gets to me, he's really filthily very drunk, and a nasty drunk. Yeah, not a fun drunk, a nasty drunk. And he's just right in my line of sight at the back of the room, and as soon as I get up, this is the only time I've ever had this, he's screaming at the top of his voice, show us your tits, show us your tits, show us your tits, right? And I let it go for a minute, like I just started my set and ignored it, but he was getting louder and louder, he was getting cross that I was ignoring him, so it was becoming louder and more obnoxious. And in the finish, and a couple of his mates tried to tell him to shush, and he just ignored them and kept going. So in the finish, I was like, okay, I've got to deal with this. So I stopped and I said, I beg your pardon? I said, what's that? And he's like, show us your tits. And I said, would you like me to show you my tits? And he's like, yeah, show us your tits. And I'm like, so you want me to show you my tits? And he's like, yes, yes. And I had a kind of, V-necked kind of stretchy dress thing on. So I was like, okay, ordinarily I don't do this, but I'm going to give you what you want. I am going to show you my tits. But he's like, ugh, like this, and I sort of grabbed the front of my dress and looked like I was going to do it. And then I stopped and I said, you know what? I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'm too intimidated because your tits are so much fucking bigger than mine, right? And then it took him a moment to get it. Like the audience was pissing themselves, and then he goes, lesbian, like this, and then just shuffled outside. But I was like, oh, you dickhead, like, yeah, president of I think he was something important. Ask him. Anyway, he's got a great rack, I guess. Next time, they're having a bit of a gentleman's night, they should have just booked him. Would have been fabulous.
Fucking hell, fuck that.
So where can we find you? I mean,
what gigs have you got coming up?
What gigs have you got going? What's happening?
I'm doing a lot of rooms at the moment, so I'm doing Lido on Tuesday night. There's a new room opening at PG O'Brien's the Monday after that, I'm doing that. I'm doing I'm doing Death or Glory soon. What date am I? 9th of February.
9th of February.
Yeah, I'm doing Gorilla. Yep. I haven't done Gorilla for about 3 or 4
Gorilla.
years. Paul Sharplin, make it good for me. Yeah, I'm doing a whole bunch of gigs around Melbourne in the lead up to festival, and my show Motherfucked with Lucy Best is on for 3 nights only. So make sure you come and see that, listeners.
And where can we find any information on that show?
Well, I do have a Facebook page, Nicky Barry Comedian. So all the details about that stuff will be up there soon.
We'll put a link to that in the description of this episode.
Thank you.
Nikki, I would like to thank you for coming in today.
Oh, thank
much
you.
Appreciated.
So much.
It's been lovely.
It was meant to happen months ago, but
yeah,
fucking
COVID.
Yeah,
that was Geordie. But anyway, we'll move on.
Fuck off, cunt.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.